Alright then. Well, hi, hello. This is another one of my Decemberween game piles, and as with the rest I've done this year, given that it's 2020, I'm trying to make sure that I'm presenting games that are both free for you to play and also give you a way to connect to other people who may be in a different space, and also that they don't have to pay to play. With that in mind, I thought that I would get something that's a little less RPG-ish, but not, free of such things. And the idea occurred to me based on the advice of my internet sister Rachel.
Hello.
That I should check out Destiny 2. And because I didn't get around to doing that this year, I thought, what better to do than to invite Rachel to come and talk to me about it. And then I'll stick a microphone in front of both of us, and we will work something out along the way.
My name is Rachel S. I am a white trans lesbian. I am on Twitter.com. If you know me, you probably know, if you know Talon, you know me. At PositronicWoman on Twitter.com. I talk about Destiny mostly nowadays because I fell off of my Transformers beat when I helped consult for trans lesbian characters in that.
Yeah.
I briefly was a comic critic for a while. I've been published in Cinema Journal regarding transgender representation in superhero comics. And besides that, I've helped Talon name some things in some of his board games. And also most recently, I have helped advise for Alexandra Van Chestain's Plant Girl light novel.
Mm-hmm. Which is, the Kickstarter is currently live, right? And it should still be live by the time this goes up.
I do believe so, yes.
In the wibbly-wobbly timey-wimey of editing. Yes, Rachel is one of the people who... very occasionally, like a groundhog escaping from its den every summer, occasionally Rachel goes unprivate, and I get to retweet a bunch of jokes that I would never say, and it's great. But understandably, the internet being the internet, then she retreats into her den for another 6 months of summer or something. I don't know how Groundhog Day works. There's just more summer here. We just have lots of summer.
Allegedly, it's 2 extra weeks of winter, and no one's super stoked about that, but it's Puxatawny's day. He says what he wants.
Yeah, it's true. We know better than to mess with that. Anyway, so we have a strange history of bouncing near each other in a variety of different ways. Like, we both got into Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, but never on a shared platform or anything like that. And we both like Dungeons and Dragons 4th edition, but never got around to being able to play with each other. So we have this interesting thing where Rachel is this journeyer from a strange land to me, who's always bringing me this wonderful expertise at stuff that I've just never gotten around to. And because of that, I thought, rather than me trying to basically stick Destiny 2's free experience down my neck in a week, what I would rather do is platform someone who knows about it and cares about it and who can give us an idea of why you should give it a shot.
Yes, hello. Once again, I am Rachel. I play a Sentinel Titan in Destiny 2. If you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. You'll probably know by the end of the video. So
actually, I think that's a great place to start. What the heck's a Sentinel Titan?
So, every of the 3 classes in Titan has, in addition, multiple subclasses, which allows you to customize your character. The 3, say, buckets of classes, since they all do very similar things, but also different in their own ways. The 3 schools are the Warlocks, who are floaty sorcerers that have slower melee speed, but further range, typically. And they regenerate health decently well, but they're more focused on, like, the arcane and the strange of the setting. Next up are the Hunters, who are the scouts, trappers, trackers, basically the folks who try and recover, like, what's left of the world. Because in Destiny, the world exploded, effectively. Something called the Collapse happened. Horrible creatures from outside our galaxy came in and decided, you know what? I'm going to go mess up their day.
So wait, the Collapse with a capital C and a capital T?
Yes.
Is that a problem? It sounds fine.
Something is threatening a second collapse, but I'll get to that after I address the 3rd class, the Titans, my personal main. Titans are big, punchy, whereas Hunters are small and do dodge rolls and throw knives. Titans punch, and they shoulder charge, and they punch. But they do on occasion have slightly more subtle things. For example, have you ever wanted to be Thor in the end of Thor Ragnarok and thunder punch some dudes? Or have you ever wanted to be kind of Thor from an alternate universe where you have a fire hammer and throw those at people? Or if you want to be Captain America but empowered by spooky space magic, that's a Void Sentinel. That is the Titan class I play.
So, and these classes are like locked in for the game experience at the start, right? Like, so I guess the really basic thing is, hey, Destiny 2, if you are completely clueless about Destiny 2, it is a first-person shooter game. First person? No.
Yeah. It is, yeah. Well, most of the time. In social areas, it's third, but yes, okay. You've got the right of it.
Yeah, it's a first-person shooter game made by the company called Bungie, which is to say there is a line of continuity between this and, like, Marathon and Halo, but, like, you know, author is dead, all creation is a sequence of processes, and all brands are ultimately puppeteering skeletons. So, like, you know, the point is it's a first-person shooter game, and at the start of the game you get to pick a class to play, and these are your three buckets. Now,
apologies for possibly gibbering too much there. I get very excited, as Talon can attest.
Don't apologize. Look, anyone coming to this YouTube channel expecting someone who's not going to be enthusiastically gibbering about something, and there's pretty pictures. They can look at the pretty pictures. It's fine.
Fair enough.
I want to remind you, I made people watch me play 30 minutes of Grey Matter and not get past the first puzzle this year, all right? Trust me, people are not going to be mad about too much enthusiasm.
Fair enough.
So, when I talk about first-person shooters, I'm old, all right? I am dust compared to you. And I remember the 90s as this sequences of lots of different competing, like, philosophies of first-person shooters. And at the time, it was hard to make a first-person shooter do a lot of different things. So you usually get shooters that did one or two things really well, and the rest of the game would be built around that, like, philosophy. And we can talk about that in academic ideas of, like, the philosophy engine or the idea space of what a game creates. But that's all bleh. The important thing is...
That can be another podcast.
Yeah, that could be a whole thing. You know, like hours of that. And indeed, I would bring you on for the Destiny episode of that, too. But when it comes to this idea in the context of Destiny, Destiny sets out at the start and says, all right, there are basically 3 different ways to do this FPS. And rather than try to do one of them really well, what we've done is instead is split them into classes. So you get to pick the way your FPS plays, right? So I almost called them punches. The group, the Malay ones. The ones you were just talking about.
The Titans, yes.
Yeah, Titans fundamentally are physical movement in a space. They are dealing with their presence, they're dealing with the distances between things, and they're dealing with closing with things quickly, right?
That's correct.
And that's a style of FPS that we saw. If in the olden days, this would be what you would see in games more like Hexen and Heretic 2, where there was a reasonable expectation of melee combat. And melee is really hard in first-person kind of games, so, like, Destiny's refined that. And what would you say the other two are like?
Hunter is much more acrobatic, whereas the Titan controls the space. The Hunter navigates it. They have dodge rolls, they have smoke bombs, they have cloaks, they have ways to navigate the environment carefully and honestly, like a knife to the ribs. That's basically their design philosophy. They dodge, and when they hit you, you're dead.
Yeah. In early Halo, the earliest versions of Halo's PvP, when the controller was the du jour, one of the things that they would develop is a playstyle known as jousting, where instead of aiming your gun around to try and hit your opponent, like, perfectly, what you would instead have is that you would have you would position the target reticle at roughly head height based on positioning in the world, and you would move your body around until you could line up someone's head with your reticle. And that's that's the philosophy of correct movement coupled with evasion. So the Warlock seems to be following in on that tradition. I'm not saying, by the way, hey, if you liked Hexen, you'll like playing Titans, and if you liked Halo, you'll like playing Warlocks. I'm just saying, like, this is an interesting...
Hunter.
Sorry. My bad.
Yes, no worries.
Warlocks are the ones who die and explode, correct?
They do all sorts of weird shit. Yeah, they can run around like Emperor Palpatine screaming unlimited power and shoot lightning out of their hands. They can Kamehameha a giant purple energy blast. They can basically they are very much ranged folks. They do not want to get up close like Titans or Hunters necessarily want to do. They try and hold back and try and get the. And they also have an element of support to them where they can heal or buff your friends. So kind of like some of the class stuff in Overwatch.
Right. Now, I was going to bring up Overwatch as another example of a first-person shooter with a communal aspect. Now, I couldn't get into Overwatch. I got it very graciously. I was gifted it, and I really appreciate that. And I have never played anything in Overwatch aside from the practice areas, because I find the idea of getting involved in that community and being bad at that game, socially bad at that game, of like, oh, I'm just learning this, I don't know what I'm doing, I have made other people's game experience worse. I find that really upsetting, and I don't want to be that person. Now, at last check, Destiny operates on cooperative, optional kind of play design.
I would agree with that assessment.
So how would a new player getting into Destiny ramp up to the point where they're hanging out with friends and doing fire teams and taking down, was it the Iron Banner?
The Iron Banner is a multiplayer thing, but yeah, you can take it down.
Well, I mean, ramping up to that, getting there.
Yeah, exactly. Don't worry, I'm just vibing myself. But yeah. So honestly, the main thing is that when you start the game, this is something that they're trying to replicate the old launch experience from the first Destiny. They later admitted that separating was not a decision they should have made, but it was a request made by Activision. But yeah, that they split the player base effectively, and they realized that Destiny, like players in general, like how the game plays, where you can either focus on a computer generated target rich environment where you're fighting computer controlled enemies, or you can chill out with your friends and do multiplayer. And the people who like Destiny tend to love Destiny, and so they regard change with suspicion and fear. So there was some restoration of certain elements of D1 that didn't make the initial transfer. The idea is that you start out as a nobody guardian. You have woken up in the middle of Russia. You have a tiny little drone friend who beeps at you and tells you, "Hello, I'm your ghost." And you have no idea what this means until they add some dialogue later on. And so this little guy has revived you from literally the dead to tell you this. You are a servant of the Traveler. You are here to help. You're not here to hurt. You are specifically here to help humans fight back against alien fascists, imperialists, and death cultists who have come to either take the Traveler or, just kill people for funsies. So you're basically thrown into that situation. You're basically told, as resurrect in short for res, you could guess that. But basically, the drone will walk you through your first encounter in the Cosmodrome. He will generate you some basic armor. He will help you find some weapons and equipment. He will give you like the elevator pitch on what your class is. And you will fight alien scavengers called the Fallen. You will fight a boss. You will possibly encounter other folks cooperatively helping out, fight against that boss, or just out in the world. And then from there, you will help a computer-generated, a non-player character. You will meet Shah Han. He will be a hunter who is looking for his friend. And it kind of shows the entire theme of Destiny, stronger together. The fire team is made up of different perspectives and different classes, basically, because there's just different ways to look at the world. And the Traveler represents diversity of ideology, of opinions, of background, just diversity in all its forms, the belief in change and growth and goodness. And I care a lot about the Traveler, which is not a thing I expected to say about a giant alien space orb.
Yeah,
but
it is interesting the way that, like, just the way you're referring to this thing as personalized, the way you first describe it with personality and motivation and interests and cares. And just in case anyone's not already aware of this, the Traveler's the ball, right?
Yep, the Traveler is the big white cuck ball floating above the city.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. So, aside from the obvious Christmas applications of you are returning to a place you once left so that you can oppose death cultists and fascists, we do actually want, like, there is a new player experience here, like an on ramp
Mm-hmm.
that is a way of getting you
Mm-hmm.
into this space, and it sounds like there is a clear narrative thrust. So, we've talked about what you can make in this. We've talked about why you might
Mm-hmm.
care about this. I guess the big thing I would then ask, just in case anyone wants to know, is there anything that you would throw up as an example of particularly content warning-y stuff in the opening? Now, I mean, I know for a fact that one of the things that this game starts with is, you died. And I know for some people, that's a problem. So, no, you don't have to, like, jump into Destiny to override that fear. But, like,
Yeah,
at last
of
check,
course.
this game is not packing particular... Like, you're not going to run into transphobic jokes or homophobic jokes in the opening hour or two kind of thing. This is not...
No. In fact, there are multiple queer writers on the staff. I don't want to name names just in case there is some privacy element. I have been in contact with some folks and just kind of like brushed elbows because, my past as a critic, you meet folks at conventions and stuff.
Yeah.
But
conventions.
they vary.
I remember conventions.
Right? Don't we all? But there are specifically trans characters on both the heroes and villain sides. There is a trans dude, a villain. There is a trans lady protagonist character in the supporting background. There are multiple lesbians and gay men and bi folks of either gender in the background of the game. It is treated as normal and common to be queer.
Right.
There are multiple people of different ethnic backgrounds. The game is set in South America. Not that it ever tells you that, but like there's ramen shops. There's a gentleman named Saladin who shows up. They very specifically want to feel like cosmopolitan, despite being set in mainly one sector of the Earth.
Yeah. I do not know how this game relates to drugs or coercive drug use. I've never seen any mention of it, but if there was any kind of deep lore of like, oh yeah, all of them are all high all the time.
Yeah.
Like
nothing like that. There are like occasional prose stories where someone drinks alcohol or takes some drugs, but it's rarely in game. It's usually in the stories on the website.
And so just glad to be able to get that out there. And like obviously, if I was going into this with all of my expertise and like, oh well, you see the drop and pop mechanisms of the guns and the hit scan waves, that's all great, but that's not the important stuff. That's not why you should want to play, right?
Absolutely.
Part of the reason why we wanted to bring this forward and let you talk about what you love so much is because this is something that's able to let you connect with people, right, during this difficult time. Would you recommend this overall as a tool set for, like, obviously you don't want to say, hey grandma, we're going to do Christmas on, actually, if you're
no
actually, given the age ranges, it's entirely possible that your grandma is like Stevie Case, in which case that sounds like it's dope. But setting that aside, it is a space, it is a game that creates a space, right? Like you do things with a group, and there's stuff you can do on your own, and there's stuff you can do with your friends, and it's non-coercive. Like it's
yes.
Because
well, do elaborate on what you mean by coercive. Apologies.
So in, let's say, World of Warcraft, I play World of Warcraft with my partner and one of my best friends, and we played that together for about a year. And during that time, I played a tank, my friend played a damage dealer, and my partner played a damage dealer. And that meant that what we were doing is randoming up healers. But any given day where I didn't want to play, they were waiting 40 minutes to an hour for a group, and when I did want to play, we got them instantly. So that meant that I had an obligation to be there. Now, the good news is I was an immense turbo nerd, so it was never a problem. But the nature of Destiny is that it's not like, okay, you need one Warlock, one Titan, and one...
Oh, no.
So there's room for doing stuff together and doing stuff apart.
And very specifically playing it your way. That is something that they want to do. Like, there's like a billion different weapon types. Like, just to throw out some names here, just really quick.
Yeah?
I hate scout rifles, but my partner Vivian, they love scout rifles. They think that they're a very good weapon type. And there's like 17 different kinds of weapons. There's grenade launchers, there's swords, there's bows, there's basically ballistas, but like shot like as a rail gun. It's they very specifically want you to like be able to play your way. So there are people who will challenge themselves to do like, oh, we cleared this raid with only 6 hunters, or oh, I cleared this raid by myself, or that kind of thing. And it's all doable. You can like set any thing you want to do, but you can also just kind of vibe and let it take carry you where it takes you.
On that note, you mentioned that there are guns. If we're playing together and a gun drops, I can just give it to you, right?
Unfortunately, not. No, there
Okay.
is no trading.
Okay, no, that's okay. That's a good thing to know. Because like I used to play Diablo 2 back in high school. I played Diablo 2 with friends, and one of the things I would do is I would do item dives, and I loved being able to go like, "Hey, here's stuff for you and stuff for you and whatnot." Like that. So that was a cool thing you could do,
Mm-hmm.
but it was not necessarily the same thing for everyone. And I guess with all of that said, is there any point you'd recommend that people like do a playthrough and then assess? Right, like so.
Yeah.
For some games, I might say like play the first 3 levels and see if you like them, because that's kind of when the game has really told you what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say like how much time would you recommend people give Destiny before they decide if they're really clicking?
Honestly, I do think it depends on people's patience for certain things. The tutorial is very much a video game tutorial,
Mm-hmm.
but if you're willing to put this,
Escape the tutorial,
if you
endure the tutorial.
yeah, yeah, it's probably like 5 hours or so.
All right.
So yeah, like I mean, unfortunately, video games are just very long now, and that is kind of the expectation. Games will be like 40 to 80 hour masterpieces, and we've just kind of accepted that along the way. But it isn't usually that bad. Campaigns in Destiny are about 5 to 10 hours thereabouts. The newest one that just came out, Beyond Light, that was about like 6 or 7 hours, not counting any of the like post story stuff.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, the main stories, as the tutorial is probably like 5 hours,
Okay.
and then you got Forsaken, which is in the first expansion for sale, about 10 hours, I'd say. Then Shadowkeep, about 7 or 8, and yeah, basically the thing of it is, and here's why I recommend the expansions, though other than Beyond Light, you might not necessarily need them because they come with like cycles of loot and whatever, and since some of them are older, some of that gear is deprecated. The reason I would honestly play it is just because like there's enough storytelling there that they have fun with it. They build on themes, they bring characters back from story to story, and as you play just socially with your friends on occasion, you'll go like, "Oh, I remember that character name dropped somewhere," or so it's definitely one of those games that rewards a longer playtime. But like, if you just want to hang out and chill and do whatever, you don't even need to finish the tutorial if you want. I'm pretty sure like you can just get to a certain point in the tower and you'll have Crucible unlocked, you'll have the strikes unlocked, you'll have Gambit unlocked, and so if you don't care about the story and just want to hang out with your friends, like even less than 5 hours.
All right. That's really excellent news.
Personally, I would recommend checking out the website Ishtar Collective. Ishtar, like the goddess, ISHTAR hyphen collective, COLLECTIVE.com. And it records all the story from the first Destiny and as much of the story as they can find from 2 that they haven't data mined already. And basically, and yeah, if you just want to catch up, if you are intrigued by certain characters as you play through the game, you can search for them, look for name drops of them. You can look at certain expansions. You can look at certain weapon types. You can look at the names of certain legendary weapons and see what their deal is by looking at their lore tab on the site. And yeah, you can just like, they've basically turned it into a science fiction superhero world where there's just so much to explore. It's like, what interests you? Edgy goths, heroic knights, dragons, time robots? What are you into? We got it for you, pal.
And that sounds like a fantastic reason that you should at least check it out and give it a shot. All right, well, I want to thank you very much for all of your time and your energy and your thoughts on this. This has been wonderful.
Okay, Australia, I'm listening.